All right. Welcome to the United Operations Training Center's Rotary Wing class. All right. This class is not meant to teach you close air support, and is not meant to make you friggin' Top Gun Mavericks. All right. This is meant to give you the basic skills to get off the ground, get to point A to point B, and hopefully do it without killing yourself and your crew and your passengers. All right. Any questions so far? All right. If it looks like my guy's not looking at you, it's probably because I got my damned free track running, and I'm looking off at my paperwork. All right. All right. The requirements for this course is we'll be developing the Top Gun course later, but the requirements is hopefully you all have taken the at least the navigation course, because the being able to read the map and understand its landmarks and everything is very important to a rotary wing pilot, because you need to understand what kind of terrain you're going to be flying around and what kind of LZs you're going to be heading in once you've decided where you're going to be landing. All right? Okay, during this course we'll learn the flight mechanics behind a helo, the characteristics of commonly used aircraft, as well as their armament, characteristics, and crew complement. You also learn the basic maneuvers and tactics commonly used when flying a helo, as well as the emergency procedures. Alright? The reason we're doing this is that you'll be able to fly from point A to point B. Basically doing that's not enough. Alright? Many times you'll hop into a pilot slot because it's cool, or you think you're the shit. Trust me, you're not. Alright? You've got a job to do when you take these slots, and we expect you to do them competently. Alright. Basically, a good pilot is always learning and improving. Alright? So expect to jump in on a dummy match every so often to fly around, get used to it. Load up your own server, spawn a chopper, fly around, get used to how they handle, get used to their power curves, how fast they can climb, how quickly they can lose speed, how quickly they can lose altitude. Yeah, as Mago said, Dami's a great place to learn without having the pressure of completely screwing up and ruining a mission. Alright? That's where I learned a lot of my stuff, is in Dami. When I first started playing at UO, I had a hard time just hovering, let alone... Yeah, don't try it on Clafgan, you'll die. But I had a hard time just hovering in one spot when I first started playing in UO. Playing quite a few Dami maps, I've upped my own I would say proficiencies, and flying on my own servers when no one's on helps a lot. Alright, now these skills will be employable on pretty much any map we have a helo asset, whether it's a Little Bird, Black Hawk, Chinook, all of these skills are pretty much cross-usable between airframes, alright? The only thing you've got to realize is that each airframe will handle differently. So you've got to be ready to anticipate how it's going to handle and be ready to use that to your advantage. Alright? Basically, phase 1 here is you need to understand the role of a utility helicopter. Okay? You're not going to sit there and take a Black Hawk into a friggin' unit, into a combat zone, and expect to be providing CAS. It's just not going to happen. Can't expect your gunners to be sitting there and providing close air support with the damn miniguns, unless it's just infantry you're shooting. Otherwise, you're going to be shot down, and shot down hard. All right. Okay, the main mission of these utility helicopters, well, except on desert, well, if you're flying it right. But anyway, that's for another day. The main... Who just joined?
Mike, I think.
Yep, Mike.
Hey, Mike, you there? Mike, hello. Hey, stand by, I'm sending him poke. Mike. Give him a second. Let's see what's going on. Alright, has he joined yet? Mike, you there? Can you hear us?
Mike.
It got ended. Is he showing up on your shack tech?
Nope. Not yet.
Alright, should be in slot screen. Should be able to hear us.
Yeah, if he's wearing his headphones.
Hey Mike, you there?
I just
Mike.
continue up there. It's his own problem getting late.
Alright, fuck it. Alright, the basic usage of these helicopters, okay, is for troop transportation, alright? There's multiple ways you can do it. Is the ground insert, where you actually land and let them out. You got your fast rope insertion, where if you're in a heavily wooded area, or i.e. you're in Klafgan and there's no flat areas. And there's also the halo insertion, which you won't see often from a helicopter, but it sometimes does happen. Alright? Other usage for these transport choppers is medevac, combat stores transport, which you're going to see a lot in the MSO coming up. Alright? Vehicle sling loading. The Black Hawk itself can actually lift the Humvees. Okay? Reconnaissance, i.e. the little bird here. You might be frontline going in and seeing where enemies are. And combat air support, which would be CAS, which you're not going to see very much of. Alright? Yeah.
Can you hear us, Mike?
Mike?
Yeah, I'm listening, guys. Good
Okay.
evening.
Who disconnected? Alright,
No one here.
who disconnected? I just heard someone disconnect.
That was Bloodbane. I'm back. TS just crashed.
Okay, good to go. Alright, Mike, just to give you a good, a quick overview of what you missed. Basically went over what these helicopters are for. I'm not here to train you in CAS, I'm here to train you on transport. Transports are going to be used for ground inserts, fast ropes, halos.
I heard that.
Alright.
Chuck. Thanks a lot.
Alright, good to go. And basically, don't expect to be the hero when you're doing this. You know, your job is to get your cargo and your crew to their destination safely without getting shot down. All right, and that's hopefully the skills I'm going to give you today. All right. All right.
Thanks.
All right. Moving on. Knowing your bird. All right. Basically, you need to know how these birds fly and everything. So when/if you get damaged, you know what to do when you're going down. All right. Basically, what we're going to do now is go over the fuselage and identify key points of the chopper. All right. Now, what you see me standing in front of right now, what am I standing in front of here?
AH6.
The nose?
Bird.
MH6. Okay. Okay. All right. What's this big dome-looking thing that the seats are in? The cockpit. Yeah, exactly. All right. Basically, the heart of the aircraft, where the pilot sits, is the cockpit. All right. Who joined?
Distracted.
Oh, I thought you weren't going to be here.
Well, I said I could be here, but I can't. Well, I should have said I can be here for not the full length, though.
You're a liar. All right. Continuing on. All right. That's the cockpit. That's where you sit. Basically, the other than the engine, it is the most important spot in the chopper, because if the pilot gets shot, guess what's going to happen? That thing's going to fall like a rock. All right. Moving on. Okay. The main body of the helicopter is the fuselage. All right. That's a shell that encases the engine, the troops, and basically keeps you flying. All right. You get enough damage to that fuselage, and what's going to happen to that chopper? Boom.
Boom.
That's what's going to happen. All right. So you want to make sure that you minimize damage to the fuselage, either by A, not hitting crap, or B, not getting shot at. All right. Next, what we're going to look at is the landing gear. All right. You notice this particular chopper uses the skid landing gear. All right. If you look over to your left at the Blackhawk, that one uses a tricycle landing gear. All right. That's the main variations of landing gear you're going to see on these choppers. The main differences being the Wildcat and KA-60, which use the reverse tricycle with 1 in the front, 2 in the rear, and the Chinook, which uses a full 4 wheels. All right. Next is we're going to move on to your main rotor. The main rotor is the thing that just keeps you in the air. When that thing goes, you're done. All right. You can get it down, but it's going to be a pain in the rear. All right. The main rotor is basically a whole bunch of small wings that'll provide lift and transfer the power from the engine to the airfoils, which will provide lift. All right. After that, back here, you've got your anti-torque rotor, your tail rotor. What this does is counters the torque from the main rotor and keeps the aircraft from spinning out of control. All right. If this gets damaged in flight, the helicopter, if you're at a sufficient speed, will maintain its heading. But once you get to a low speed, the helicopter will want to spin out of control due to the unmitigated torque coming from the main rotor. All right. So be wary that if you sustain damage to that, you will have to enact emergency procedures to maintain a safe landing. And the last thing you'll need to learn is the gearbox linkage, which will be... Why is my rifle not coming up? Right about where my rifle's pointing, inside that area of the helicopter, there's what's called the gearbox linkage. The main rotor is attached to the anti-torque rotor by actual linkages. So the faster the main rotor spins, the faster the rear rotor will spin. All right. Not to mention pivoting left and right via the rudder controls is controlled by the anti-torque rotor. Okay. If that gear linkage gets damaged, right, you will more than likely lose your anti-torque rotor. Okay. And if you're attempting to auto rotate, it will make things a lot more difficult. All right. I'll get more into the gear linkages when we get to emergency procedures and auto rotation. All right. Now, all this working together allows us to take this giant hunk of metal and make it fly. All right. So, what we're going to do now is go over the danger areas of a helicopter. The main danger areas are in the back there. That anti-torque rotor will chop you to little pieces. I'm sure a bunch of you have already seen people walk behind a helicopter and end up having to get medical aid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll assume you've seen it. All right. Yeah. You'll get a new face real quick, and you'll either have to respawn or get revived. Okay. Another thing you got to worry about is if your pilot happens to land on a hill, and these main rotors are pointed down more than they normally are, and you run through them, yeah, you're gonna get screwed big time. All right. So that's one of those things you got to worry about a lot. Depending when you're the pilot, you want to ensure that you land in such a way that you can ensure the maximum safety for those passengers who are embarking or disembarking. All right. All right. Now, for your responsibilities as a pilot, you've got 4 main responsibilities. All right. Okay. One is to know your surroundings. All right. Whether you're in a forest or a desert or in the middle of who knows where, it's your job to know where you're going, what route you're going to take, and what's around, and the possible positions of any enemy troops. All right. 2 is know your cargo. Are you sling loading? Are you carrying troops? Are you carrying non-volatile cargo? All that stuff is going to factor into how you fly. All right. As I said before, you need to know your route. All right. Are you going through a valley? Are you going to be cresting mountains? Are you going over a forest, roads, desert? All that stuff you need to know so you can keep an eye out for any enemy emplacements. You know, knowing if you need to stay low, go high. You know, all that's going to factor in. And then, of course, know your approach to your LZ. All right. Because depending on what the LZ looks like, what its topographical features are, and any foliage and vegetation will determine which way you want to go. Not to mention possible enemy positions to minimize the exposure you'll have to fire. Alright? Alright, what we're going to go over now is the basic flight model of this chopper. Alright. How many of y'all have sat there and taken a broom and held it on your like fingers and like held it stable? You know, sitting vertical.
What again?
Yeah, try to.
For
Yeah,
more than a
basic-
couple of seconds, no.
Well, you know how if you keep it upright, when it starts leaning one way, you've got to move yourself to counter it, right? You've got to get up.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Sticking a pen on your finger, end up and trying to balance it. Yeah, exactly. Basically, I'm saying doing it with a broom because it's a lot easier to do with a broom than a damn pen. But basically, that's how these choppers work, right? Once they start moving in a direction, they're going to keep going in that direction until you counter it, right? I.e., when you push that stick forward and you start nosing down and getting some forward momentum, until you pull back on that stick to counter that momentum, it's going to keep moving. Right? Kind of the same as spinning a basketball in your on your finger. When it wants to move one way, you've got to move your finger back up under it to keep it from going that way and eventually falling off your finger, right? That's how the helicopters work. If you sit there and put the stick to the right and get that thing flying sideways to the right, you're eventually going to have to put it back to the left to get it to stop. All right, exactly, Newton. All right. Now, what we're going to be going over is your low-speed maneuvering, high-speed maneuvering, and stopping. All right. Stopping is what I want to teach you first. All right. Because if you can't stop this thing, you have no business being in it. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to want all of y'all to get in the Blackhawks, which will be behind me, all right, on the other side of this little bird, right? Instructors, which will be Death Strike, and God Hand, if you're comfortable in a little bird, go ahead, but otherwise, grab a Blackhawk. All right, I'm going to be a little bird since it's more maneuverable for me to move around. All I want you to do is get in the Blackhawks. Do not start them up. Just sit there, all right? What I want you to do is, I assume all of you are used to Acre and using radio racks.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. When you get in there, just turn up your power and wait for instructions over the radio. Well, in fact, don't even forget that because I forgot I turned off my Acre. Go ahead, get in the choppers, wait for instructions.
Yeah, Godhand, you'll also probably want to turn off your Acre. Just disable the plugin and you can re-enable it later.
Whatever you're comfortable with, since I know you're kind of doing the instructor/student thing, so if you think you can handle Little Bird, go for it. Otherwise, grab a Blackhawk since they won't move as quickly on you. Alright, I'm going ahead and getting airborne so I can turn around and keep an eye on you guys.
Yeah, I'll give myself a yeah. You'll have me for instruction if you need me up, Chuck.
Alright, good to go. Alright guys, if you hear either myself or Death Strike breaking over the Acre, make sure you kill comms and listen up. Alright, what I want you all to do is start spooling up your choppers, but maintain your position on the ground. Alright, the first thing we're going to go over is maintaining a hover. Alright? Whether you've got track IR or you're using your buttons, I want you to look to your left and your right and get an idea of where the next helicopter in line to you is. Alright? Once you've done that, you'll see how close you actually are. You guys are actually very close. Alright? Now, one thing you're going to have to learn to do is hover and not really deviate from your position. Okay? So, our goal right now is I want you to lift up. I want you to go until your altitude is approximately 10, and I want you to hold it and attempt to stay within your within where you took off from. All right. Remember, one thing you need to remember is small movements. All right. There you go. All right. If you start moving forward, small movements to the back. If you move left, small movements to the right. All right. The smaller the movements, the better in a hover. All right. Because the quicker you move, the more you're going to overcompensate. All right. Now I want you to maintain that hover until I tell you to put it back on the ground. I've got two of you who are still... Alright, there we go. Alright, you all are in the air. Good to go.
Quick word, if you know you're going to suddenly fuck up for whatever reason, do your best to get yourself some space by gaining altitude immediately, rather than going into the helicopter to either side or in front of you.
Yes, if you feel like you're gonna crash into your buddies next to you, go ahead and gain altitude, and we can fix you from there. Alright, once you've corrected yourself and you've basically gotten the idea of a hover, go ahead and put it back on the ground. I don't care if you've drifted a bit, but just get it back on the ground. Okay. If you're not back on your spots, it's not a big deal. Just put her on the ground for the next bit of instruction. Alright, as you can see, maintaining a hover is actually very difficult, alright? You have to maintain small control movements while also maintaining a spot on the ground or close to you that you can use as a point of reference to keep from drifting too far. Usually the best thing I can recommend is finding that one point in front of you and moving the helo so that it minimizes movement. Alright, now what we're going to do is taking off. Alright, yeah, Magos, you're pretty close to that little bird, but don't worry about it. If you guys do blow up and you do end up exploding, just take it in stride. Everything will respawn and you'll be able to get back into your choppers.
You just remember it's better to make a mistake here than on the live server.
Indeed, I'd rather you blow up 30 times here getting it right than trying to do it in a mission. Alright. The one thing you're going to learn now is transitioning to forward flight. Alright. What you're going to do is you're going to lift. Okay. You're going to lift until you're about 10 meters off the ground. Then I want you to slowly add forward tilt until you've got a little bit of forward momentum. Then what you're going to do is once you've got about, say, 20 to 30 in speed, I want you to start slowing yourself down and pulling back and get back into a hover. Alright?
You want us all to do that at once, or do you want to say like the front helicopters first and then the rear ones?
Yeah, we'll do it that way. All right, front helicopters, go ahead and lift. Get 20 knots, and then go back into a hover.
Quick word on what Magos has just said. It's an artificial horizon, and you're better off in ArmA using visual flight rules, i.e. just look at your surroundings and base what you do off that.
Yep. All right. One thing you need to keep in mind is that when you start moving forward, depending on how violently you move forward, you will lose altitude. All right. Magos, good job. It looks like you moved forward and got a hover. All right. The other two, I need you to go ahead and move forward. I want you to get up to at least 20 knots before you come back down for a hover. Yeah, there you go, Tazzle. Alright, there you go. Alright. If there's anything I want you to practice when you've got your free time, is transitioning from forward momentum back into a hover. Because that is the hardest thing to actually do in a chopper. Alright. Once you think you're in a clear spot, front helicopters, go ahead and take a bring her down for a landing. Let's see.
Just double check you are clear, because some of you are above the demonstration aircraft there.
Yeah. Let's see. We've got. Looks like Magos, you're clear. Tassel, I think you're above some of the demo aircraft.
Nope.
Who's that we got way up in front? Uh-oh. 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 Bloodbane. Now remember, small movements, those big movements like that are what's causing you to fly all over the place like that. Start evening out your movements so that you're not, there you go. Now you're back in control. You don't want, yeah, pretty good save, okay? You want to, when you're in a situation like that, and you're starting to overcorrect too much, remember to get back into smaller movements. Start cutting movements off quicker if it feels like you're going to slam into something or you're starting to get out of control. Alright, rear phalanx, you're free to begin your forward movement. God Hand and the other chopper that's next to him, go ahead and lift up, get some forward momentum, and then transition back to a hover. Who's that? Who we got hovering way back here that I'm next to? Martin. Okay, I didn't realize you were in the class because I hadn't seen you. I didn't see you join, so, alright. Go ahead and move forward, maintain, get back into a hover, and then go ahead and land. Alright, I'm going to assume that all of you see how momentum works in these choppers, right? All forward momentum has to be countered by back momentum, left versus right, right versus left, etc., right? I'm looking for an answer.
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Alright. Now, that's one thing you got to keep in mind when you're sitting there trying to put troops in and stuff, is you need to know when you're going to start, pulling back to start bleeding speed, and you need to know how quickly you can, move left and right, and et cetera, right? Now, I'm going to put myself on ground here real quick. Next thing we're going to go over is terrain, alright? Terrain can be either your greatest friend or your worst enemy in these choppers. Go ahead and kill your engines. Alright. Now, there's two things terrain's going to do for you. They can either hide you from the enemy and give you a safe route, or they can smash your shiny new toy into 1,000 little bits. Alright? You always have to be very wary of where you're going and what you're doing in these choppers. Alright? Okay, your best bet is usually to fly around hills and not over them. So you use these hills to mask yourself from any IR missiles, radar missiles, etc. Any ground fire, stuff like that. Alright? Alright, real quick, this is something just for you to digest in your head. It's something we can't really teach you, alright? It's basically your defensive tactics when you're flying, alright? When you're engaged on a mission in your helo, you got to know how to react appropriately.